All right, people. Review of the week time. Before we go over the fights that happened last night, before we go over the boxing news, I feel like I need to start on. I don't like starting on it, but it needs to be said. It's a bit of a sad note. This week, obviously, we had the news that Arturo Gatti Jr., who's only about 17 years old, sadly passed away. The son of Arturo Gatti. I don't know what to say on that. Just offer up my thoughts and prayers and sympathy to his family. We also on Friday had the funeral of Ricky the Hitman Hatton, whose death still is just. I still can't quite get over it. I still can't quite believe that he's gone. The funeral was a great send off. It was just watching it. I was watching it on the way to the airport actually on Friday. And it was a beautiful send off. It was just seeing the way he just brought Manchester together was just incredible. And Adam Smith delivered a brilliant eulogy. You could hear the emotion in his voice. Yeah, it's just when you see things like that, it's sad. It's not nice. And yeah, just thoughts go out to both Arturo Gatti Jr.'s family and Ricky Hatton's family, of course. At this time, we now talk boxing. It's always weird. It always feels a weird like transition to go from talking about something like that to just kind of going into the boxing thing, which is kind of what we have to do. Let's have a quick talk about the fights that happened last night. Particularly, we're going to talk about the undercard of Dave Allen versus Arslanbek Makhmudov. We'll talk about. Actually, do you know what? Let's go to America first. Let's go to America first, and we'll start with Jaron Boots Ennis. Now, I have to be frank, I only seen that was the only fight that I actually watched that was on the undercard. I know Giorgio Visioni, I think is how you say his name, who was one of Eddie Hearn's UK prospects, had a fight on there. And a guy called Alex Berry lost by a stoppage, by a fifth round KO at that, to Guido Vianello. It's not particularly good luck, but Boots Ennis was in there with a guy called Usma Lima. Now, he only had one defeat going into this fight, and that was to Aaron McKenna. That was on points back about 2 years ago. Boots Ennis, and Aaron McKenna is a good fighter, but Boots Ennis is a vicious, aggressive, big punching, athletic, fast, everything, all kinds of superlatives. And it was really apparent from very early on that this was a mismatch. Boots Ennis got rid of him in a round. He looked good doing it. He looked vicious as he always does. It was just a typical Boots Ennis performance. One that, apart from his last fight, which was a good performance against Staniones, I didn't think he looked too bad in the Evanesian fight. He definitely looked bad against Karen, we'll just call him that. I can't remember his last name. But yeah, Boots Ennis hadn't been looking quite as electric. This is his first fight at 154 pounds, the division which is absolutely jam packed and stacked with fighters. This was him just making the move up, just kind of getting the lay of the land, seeing how things go. There wasn't a great amount of appeal for this fight, it has to be said. Like I said, I don't think I don't think anyone did a video on it because there just wasn't that much of appeal for this particular fight. But Boots Ennis looked good. He looked fast as he always does. He's an interesting addition to the 154-pound division. I just certainly hope. And it's weird because when you go and you look at people like leaving polls, who's the best at 154, you have champions like Sebastian Fondora, Murtazaliev, but yet at the end of the day, most of them are saying that it's Virgil Ortiz who's the best in the division, and he's not even a world champion. There is killers in this division. There really is. Boots versus Virgil. It almost feels like that fight doesn't necessarily need a world title on the line. It's just such a big fight and such a good fight. I'd love to see it happen. I go back and forth all the time on who I think will win that fight. I'm still edging Virgil. For the longest time, I was Team Boots. I'm still edging Virgil ever so slightly, but I just think it's a phenomenal fight, and I just hope that they can get it done. I really do. Boots has moved up now, so he's a 154 pounder, right? He knows he can cut it at this weight, although he wasn't in there with much, but he got the lay of the land in all of, 2 minutes thereabouts. But he knows what he can do. So I don't see why they don't get that fight underway. In terms of the UK show that was on last night, I seen the Josh Padley versus Reese Bellotti highlights because I was doing a live watch along, but I was really focusing on the chat more so up until the main event. And from the looks of things, it did look like Josh Padley was given as good as he was getting, but he was getting a lot more, you know. So by the end of it, I think a lot of people had Reese Bellotti winning. Even the pundits on at ringside, Frampton and Tony Bellew had Reese Bellotti winning. One of the judges had it 99, I think 92, which was like insanity when you think that pundits at ringside all have the other fighter losing or winning, and one judge can only find a round to give to him. It's pretty crazy. Josh Padley is a talented fighter. He is. Reece Bellotti has a lot of heart. He's bags of heart. He's fighting for his career, and even in defeat, he'll earn another payday off the back of that. He will. I've no doubt about that. But Josh Padley is talented. You do wonder if he had a full, if he'd have been given the opportunities he's been given with Matchroom now or earlier in his career, what could he have done? He is a very, very good fighter. Maybe he overlooked Reece Bellotti. And you have to remember, this was his first fight at 130 pounds. When he fought Mark Chamberlain, I think that might have been at 140. And then he fought Shakur Stevenson at 135. So he's come quite a bit down. One has to ask the question, it's all well and good saying you can make these weights, right? It's all well and good saying, oh, well, now I have the time to dedicate myself, properly. I can, go down an extra weight and stuff like that. But should you really? Is it going to deplete you? Is it going to take a bit too much away from you? And you could ask that question for Josh Padley, potentially. But he moves on. Junan Boston fought this guy, Bali Fazwa, I think is how you say his name. Now, this guy, he is a fighter who I believe is trained by Grant Smith. Very athletic, but doesn't really appear to have a great deal in the way of talent, nor does the opponent he was in there with, who is 37 years old. Doesn't look 37 years old at all, and, from London, originally from Nigeria. And yeah, he does not look 37 years old, really doesn't. But what I would say, right, it was a good, solid domestic clash. We obviously didn't have David Diamante doing the Master of Ceremonies for the Matchroom UK show, because obviously he was doing the show over in the US. They had this guy called Ben Edwards. Now, before I went live, I was watching the undercard, watching the prelims, and I thought Ben Edwards did a very, very good job until we got to this fight. And then I think, is it just inexperience? Is it nerves? But he made an absolute howler when it came to announcing the scores for this fight. Now, this was a pretty good back and forth type of a fight, right? The scorecards read as follows: 95-95, even, a draw. Although he didn't say it like that. He read that one second, and he read the 96-95 scorecard. He read that one first and then said who it was for. So he completely destroyed any suspense. And I think that's just a very kind of rookie mistake for an MC. I remember watching, who was it? It was a couple of years ago now, maybe about 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It was on, I think it was on YouTube. But it was a show here, it was either I think it was in Belfast. Blimey, who was it? I think it was a European title fight. I can't remember who it was, right? But the MC was just some run-of-the-mill MC. And what he did, and this again is just such a silly thing to do because it ruins the suspense of the decision, right? Especially in a close fight, was he read the scorecards. Now, we all know when you're reading the scorecard, say it's a split decision, you say it's 118 to 110 for Canelo, it's 119 to 109 for Gennady Golovkin. You know the way they do that when it's a split decision. It was a unanimous decision, and he named the fighter first, then he named him second, and so by then they knew he won. And even then they were all confused because they were like, what the hell's going on? They should just, it's not difficult. Majority decision, you read the even scorecard first, overruled by judges A and B who score at such and such and such for your winner by majority decision, it's done. Bit of a howler there from the MC. Bit of a howler. And then we get to the main event, Dave Allen versus Arslanbek Makhmudov. I thought Allen would probably get the job done. He didn't. He had opportunities in there, but ultimately Arslanbek Makhmudov was the busier, he was the more accurate, he was the sharper. He was just significantly better in every department. Dave Allen was frustrating to watch because when he had the opportunities to actually let the shots go, when he had Arslanbek Makhmudov backed up to the ropes, which he actually seemed to find quite easy to do, it wasn't like he was having a hard time actually getting Makhmudov backed up to the ropes. That was the thing. It seemed like he was well able to do it. It's just once it came to let the shots go, he was just unwilling, apart from a couple of rounds, to actually do it. He did it in round 9, had some success, did a little bit in round 5. They're the only rounds you could really clearly give to Dave Allen. And even then, I think round 5, it was a bit of a much round. But round 9, yeah, he had opportunities. He never followed up. And he was able to let Makhmudov get back into it. Dave Allen did a bit of a decent job at tucking up and riding some of the shots, but ultimately there was only one winner, and it was Makhmudov. I've already spoke about what I think both guys should do from here. We're not going to labour the point. I think Makhmudov for Anthony Joshua, it's a perfect comeback fight for Anthony Joshua. He's got that element of danger because he is a big puncher, But ultimately, I think he's just too slow, uncoordinated, and unsophisticated, and too lacking in defense, quite frankly, that Anthony Joshua should light him up like a Christmas tree. He really should. He should have an easy time, reasonably easy anyway, with Makhmudov, which would hopefully build to a fight with Tyson Fury coming up at some stage, hopefully next year. As for Dave Allen, I think he should go back onto the domestic scene. As I said, don't know what way Fraser Clark is going to be like. Jamie TKV never really rated him. Solomon Dakers, I'd pick Dave Allen to beat Solomon Dakers if they fought next, providing, and no, I probably still would pick him because I've never rated him. Adelaya, no, I think he's getting better, and I wouldn't pick him over Dave. I certainly wouldn't pick Dave Allen over him. I'd be picking him over Dave Allen definitely. But I think there's still opportunities there at domestic level, certainly for Dave Allen. So he said he wants to carry on. He was very harsh in his assessment of himself by just saying, "Look, I'm just not good enough. This, that, and the other." I don't know. Like I think that was a winnable fight for Dave Allen. I really do. I just think that it's very frustrating when you see someone there who, he has some talent offensively, but he did things that just frustrate you. Like, he doesn't take his head off center line, so he's getting picked apart with jabs and right crosses. He doesn't let his hands go enough when he gets up close, and it's just like, I can see what he can do to win. He's just not doing it. Sort of way. So it can be frustrating to watch in some senses like that. But that was the Matchroom show that happened last night. As for the rest of last week, it was quite the week, it has to be said, with boxing news. So let's start from, let's just go from everything boxing. Let's just get as much news as we can in the next 10 to 15 minutes. So Chris Billam-Smith, right? Chris Billam-Smith was supposed to have an interim WBO title fight against a guy called Ramon Fez. I wasn't aware of this purse bid being ordered, but apparently it was. It was rescheduled for October the 16th, and this is why, because it was declared deserted because there were zero bidders. No one wanted to bid for this fight. The minimum bid was 300 grand, which is now half to 150 grand. Neither guy is going to fight for that. You're not going to split 150 grand between a former world champion. It's not going to happen. That's a bit upsetting that no one's willing to bid for CBS fights now, because CBS still has a little bit left in the tank. I enjoy watching CBS. He's very seldom in a boring fight, except the Okoli fight. That was awful. Don't ever watch that fight. But that's a bit sad considering, again, he's a good fighter. So, and last I checked, he was a bench long fighter. So, you'd think CBS headlining in Bournemouth on the South Coast on a BBC show, there you go. You think it'd be a slam dunk. Evidently not. Evidently not. I don't know how I feel about this fight being postponed. I can't say I'm going to be losing sleep over it, to be honest with you. But Sebastian Fundora and Keith Thurman, their fight has reportedly been postponed because Fundora has now suffered a hand injury. The show is cancelled, but Thurman Fundora will apparently be rescheduled. And I have to say, right, like, I don't care for that fight. I like watching Sebastian Fundora. I like watching Gabby Fundora. I think they're both very entertaining. But Keith Thurman beat that Brock Javez guy who's a blown up 140 pounder. Keith Thurman hasn't really been relevant since 2019. And he hasn't been probably in his prime since 2017. This is someone who was a big fan of Keith Thurman. When he first came onto the scene, I seen his run at welterweight. His fight against Sean Porter was brilliant. It was a phenomenal fight, one of the fights of the year in 2016. They did that in the Barclays Centre. It was brilliant. I actually had Porter winning that fight slightly the first time I watched it, but subsequently I thought, no, Thurman definitely did win it. It was phenomenal. And that was Keith Thurman. And it's just sad. It's not sad. It's his own fault. It's frustrating that he never pushed on really after he unified with Danny Garcia. It was just not doing anything. He became one-time Thurman in a sense of he fought once every, 2 years, it seemed. So I don't think he's got a sniff of a prayer against Sebastian Fundora. I think that's just going to be a mismatch, to be honest with you. But look, they're going to reschedule it. Now, this is an interesting one right here. The British Boxing Board of Control have formally ordered Vidal Riley to defend his British Boxing Board of Control cruiser, or British title really, against his mandatory challenger, Alois Jr. next. Purse bids are going to take place on November the 12th. The fight must take place before the end of February of next year. Now, Vidal Riley is a free agent. Alois Jr. is with Frank Warren. Vidal Riley announced that he was a free agent. We're hearing rumours that he's in talk with Warren, that he's in talk with Matchroom. It's another fighter who's left bench alone. He's not the biggest fighter. We will get to that. We will touch on it briefly. We all know what I'm alluding to. But if you're Eddie Hearn, I'd be signing Vidal Riley, to be honest with you. He's got a big following. He had a great performance last time. And if they go ahead and make Alois Jr. versus Vidal Riley, I mean, it'd be blockbuster build-up because they're both talkers. In particular, Alois Jr., I mean, he has a real big opinion of himself. I wouldn't give him a sniff of a prayer of beating Vidal Riley, though. When Alois Jr. went in there with Elizara, who, you know, every time he stepped up to even domestic level on some occasions, he's been found wanted, he's been getting stopped. I felt that he probably just did enough to beat Alois Jr., as did the commentary team. If he's giving you Elizaro a bit of movement and that's bothering you, mate, Vidal Riley's going to box your head clean off. He's going to box your head clean off. It's just not going to work. It's just not going to happen. So that is that. This is the news that we got earlier in the week. And I'm not going to touch on it too long because I've already spoke about it. But light heavyweight prospect Ben Whittaker, it's been announced that he's signed with Matchroom and that he will make his debut at the end of November. The press conference is actually happening this Friday. Now, Eddie Hearn has a show on at the York Hall this coming Friday. It's headlined by George Liddard versus Kieran Conway. I may or may not go to it. Depends on how much time I have this Friday. But, we have a press conference earlier that day, obviously with Ben Whittaker being announced as a Matchroom fighter. And I think it's a great move by Matchroom. You've got one of the biggest names in the UK, one of the biggest up-and-coming stars. Ben Whittaker, although he's not even fought for a British title, he's already been able to build that following outside of the boxing hardcore. He's already become a name to the casuals with his antics, with his showboating, with everything. So this is a great move for Eddie Hearn. You would think that Ben Whittaker and Eddie Hearn, they're just going to, like that. They're just going to be like a match made in heaven. They're just going to go together, you know, like white on rice, you know, like that's just how it's going to be. It just seems a fit. And I think this is a good move from Matchroom. At the end of the day, they are signing some good American fighters. They have some good fighters like Boots Ennis. They obviously have Bam Rodriguez, one of my favourite fighters. But in the UK, as I said, Conor Benn, okay, but what happens if he loses again to Chris Eubank? Katie, what's she going to be doing? Is she retired? Is she not retired? And she's fighting more in America these days. AJ, you've still got a chance with him. Yep. But after that, who do you really have? Who do you really have? You know, you have the likes of Josh Warrington, who's near the end, but again, up there in Leeds. You have the likes of Dalton Smith, but again, up there in Sheffield. You want someone who, okay, they have a following everywhere they go, whether it be Birmingham, whether it be London, whether it be Manchester, whether it be Scotland. You know, you want it all over. That's what I think you're going to get with Ben Whittaker. So it's a great move. Absolutely brilliant move by Eddie Hearn. I think it's a phenomenal move. I really do. I absolutely do. In terms of fights that might be taking place next year, Tyson Fury, right? Now, I haven't done a video on it because, to be honest with you, I just didn't want to do it. I'm sick of hearing it, but it is boxing news, so I will talk on it briefly. I just need to find the quote from Frank Warren. I really should have had this. I normally have it all ready to go before I do review of the week, but I didn't have this particular one. So, Frank Warren, there it is. Frank Warren has confirmed that Tyson Fury still intends to come out of retirement and fight again in 2026. He says the following: I spoke to him last week. He said he's going to come back and fight next year. He wants to do it. Now, I'm surprised, to be honest with you, we didn't get something off Tyson Fury in the Alexander Usyk. Well, I suppose we kind of did, but only little bits. I thought he'd announce a comeback, to be honest with you, when it was Dubois versus Usyk. Because you may remember, we had the Ring Magazine Awards show. It was on a Saturday night, early January this year, where Alexander Usyk cleaned up with awards, Tyson Fury wasn't there, AJ called him out, we had all that, right? That Monday, then we had the press conference for the Last Crescendo, one of the best shows I've ever seen, I've ever watched, which was obviously headlined by Beterbiev Bivol 2. We had that press conference in London in Tottenham Court Road. And that morning, I took that morning off and everything to get ready to go to it. And all we could think about was, you know, the fighters who were going to be there, we're going to see this, we're going to see this. And then we get this announcement that Tyson Fury is retiring. And all the attention that was on that press conference, gone. And now it's all on Tyson Fury. You see what he does, right? You see what he does. He's going to announce some. I've never believed he was retired. And none of us have. He's made these hints. He said this, he's blah, 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 as he always does. The boy who cried wolf. At the end of the day, we know what's probably going to happen. AJ's going to fight most likely early next year. We'll probably get an announcement in the next month or so, the next 6 weeks. Probably get it before Christmas, definitely. Well, definitely before Christmas, because if it's going to be January, February, you want to get it done early. But we'll get an announcement on AJ. And then what will end up happening is AJ will probably have his fight. He'll most likely win because he'd be going in there with someone like a Makhmudov. And then Fury will come out of retirement. We'll get that fight. Now, my only concern, right, about Fury coming back, and it's my only real concern, is that he doesn't intend to fight Anthony Joshua. That although we're getting Joseph Parker, Fabio Wardley in a fortnight's time, and the winner is actually obliged to fight Alexander Usyk, or Alexander Usyk actually is obliged to fight the winner next, my biggest fear is that Alexander Usyk just says, no, here's your WBO title back, I'm giving Tyson Fury a trilogy fight. I hope he doesn't do that, because that's a damning indictment, and I will criticise Alexander Usyk massively for that if he does, because at the end of the day, Tyson Fury has lost twice to Alexander Usyk. He's retired. He can't just come back and say, title shot, please. Don't work like that, or shouldn't work like that. So if he comes back, him against AJ, no issues there. I would not be at all happy if he came back and was able to just click his fingers, walk into an immediate title fight against Alexander Usyk for a trilogy fight. At the end of the day, he's beaten him twice, Alexander Usyk, and he's beaten him twice clearly both times. In spite of what Fury will say, he lost both fights. It's as simple as that, right? So I really sincerely hope that's not the case. I really, truly do. Is there anything else? Joseph Parker said he'd love to face Moses Atauma on December the 13th if given the opportunity. Mate, you're fighting Fabio Wardley. I think you're going to win, but that's no guarantee. Don't be throwing your name into the hat to fight Moses Atauma. I wouldn't be going and doing that. All right, Carl Froch teased the comeback on social media. Again, I'm not going to labour the point on this. Carl Froch has had that kind of, mention of Darren Till and, this, that, and the other with, the likes of Jake Paul, stuff like that. I've said it once and I'll say it again. Carl Froch shouldn't come back. Father Time is undefeated. He's been out of the ring for over a decade now. He probably hasn't taken a shot in the last 10 years. Carl Froch, I know it's tempting. And you see, this is the problem, right? And I think this is the thing that real boxers, whether they're retired or whether they're current pros, don't like, is that they're seeing these YouTubers, they're seeing these misfit shows, which is exactly what they are. Like, they are like a bit of a laugh, and they're not. You even see the way the pundits and the presenters are at them. Like Ade will even tell you it's a bit more. It's a bit more. It's a bit more laid back and stuff like that. And I guess to a fighter, and especially fighting purists, they're seeing that and thinking it's a joke, but they're getting well paid. I want some of that money. I could take these guys. Well, yeah, in your prime, you could have easily took them, but I ain't too sure about now. Okay, is there anything else that we really need to talk about here? Not really. We still haven't got an announcement on Atauma yet on who he's going to be fighting. We're hearing rumours it could be between two people, either Michael Hunter or Hughie Fury. If it is between the two of them, because I saw this week Hughie Fury was going to be in a big fight in December against whom we don't know, and Michael Hunter is going to be in a fight in December against whom we don't know. If it is going to be between those two guys from Moses Atauma, please, for the love of God, let it be Michael Hunter, because Hughie Fury looks shot to bits. I don't know what happened to him, whether it's the illness he's had, but he looks shot to bits. Michael Hunter probably is shot to bits as well, but maybe not as. So let it be Michael Hunter, please, if it's for Atauma in December. That's what I'd be doing in that one. In terms of everything else, I think that's pretty much it. I think we're pretty much good to go there. So let me know your thoughts. Obviously, I'm back to London on Tuesday evening. We're doing Ade and G-Man again this week. Ade actually has a Q&A for us to do this coming Ade and G-Man episode. I think it's 30, 31 now. We're getting through the episodes, people. We're nearly a year doing Ade and G-Man. We got to win it. If we don't win an award this year for Sports Podcast, an award, we not talk about that, we are going to be super annoyed at that, because I think we are consistent as hell and we have a very good podcast, if I do say so myself. But I am one of the co-hosts, so I would say that. But look, we're doing that this week. It's going to be good fun. Can't wait to get back to London, and I hope this week, for everyone listening, myself included, is good. I always like to leave it on that kind of good note, that positive note. Hopefully this week is going to be very, very good for all of us involved. I think that everyone listening, everyone deserves a good week, myself included. So please, let's have a good week. Let's have some good news. Let's have it all okay. And people, I'll leave it there. Until next time, which will probably be tomorrow. More likely some boxing with news will come. I want to get back home to London so I can do some preview and prediction videos in the home studio. with the mic, with the good mic. Although this Rode mic is actually pretty good. Actually, it's pretty. If you can see it there, it's pretty handy. It's pretty good actually. They're wireless. I'm probably making noise with that now by moving it, but they're actually pretty good. I like them. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, peace.